Hi, my name is Donna and I am an OpenSciEd teacher. And today we're going to be looking at lesson 4, part of the B.1 unit. This is one of my favorite lessons in the unit because the students are going to be exploring data and they're going to learn something unexpected about the wildebeest location. And I'm excited to share what that is with you. Let's first start with how we got here. So during lesson 3, the students took a look at those fantastic data cards with the awesome graphics, and they discovered that there is a connection between wildebeest migration and nutritional health of the wildebeest. In this lesson, we're taking it further and we're wondering, how does food drive migration? Next, let's see the lesson at a glance and the sense-making loops. So this lesson is an investigation. It should take 3 days. Material preparation is a little bit longer at 40 minutes, but it's a lot of printing out handouts and getting the modeling software up and ready. This is not a hands-on investigation, but it does require the students' devices. And there is one video that you watch at the beginning of the lesson with the students. Next, the sense-making loops. We've got 3 sense-making loops with 7 key moments that we're going to be going over today. Let's see the first sense-making loop. So with sense-making loop 1, the students are going to be completing their first data excursion, where they're going to be looking at Serengeti rainfall data across 3 different locations in the Serengeti and having a discussion about it. The students are going to figure out that there is more rain between November and April and less rain between May and October, and that the North has the most rainfall of all, which leads the students to wonder, how does this connect to wildebeest location? In the second sense-making loops, students are going to look at another data set, another data excursion, this time comparing wildebeest location where they actually are to the 3 places in the Serengeti. And this is where they discover that in the wet season, wildebeest spend the most time in the south and leave when the wet season ends, even though the north has more rainfall, leading the students to wonder, why are they spending more time in the south when that is what is unexpected? We expected them to be in the north. Which leads to sense-making loop 3, where the students will be having a consensus discussion, learning about the differences between the regions, and figuring out that the South has more nutritious grass in the wet season, and they can give birth safely there. And then in the dry season, they go to the North because there's more water there, especially with that Mara River. So what the students are figuring out in this lesson, rain is a good predictor for the amount of grass available in an area. The North gets the most rainfall, but the grass is not as nutritious there. The grass is more nutritious in the South, and there's also protection from predators, which is why they tend to give birth in the South. And then the West has more predators and is more prone to fires, so the wildebeest spend the least amount of time there. The wildebeest really do not like hanging out in the West. All right, let's see those key moments. First up, we've got part 4, Introducing Data Excursion Part 1. This is the first time students are going to be using CodeApp. I really encourage my students to make multiple graphs and see which one they think represents the data in the best way and creates that story. Students might feel like everything they create needs to be a final product. I really encourage them to explore with this data excursion. And then you're going to decide on an investigation question as a class. This helps give some clear direction moving forward. In part 6, we're going to have a building understanding discussion about rain and food. They're going to share their responses from the Investigating Rainfall Data handout. And this is where they're going to share those initial ideas that they learn, that there is a wet and dry season, that it goes up and down with rainfall, and that there's always more rain in the north. And this introduces limiting factors to the students. Part 9, introduce a new investigation. We're going to decide on an investigation question about rainfall and wildebeest location. And this is where they're going to make that prediction about where wildebeest will be. A lot of students are going to predict that the wildebeest are in the north because that's where more rain is. And more rain equals more grass. Part 10 is the whole class discussion. And this is an awesome part of this where we get that unexpected result. The wildebeest are not where we predicted, that the wildebeest are in the south during the wet season and in the north during the dry season. We're going to work together as a class to identify additional data needed, specifically the wildebeest numbers in those locations. Part 17, building understanding discussion. Where we start as a class trying to come up with reasons for why they are spending time in the south during the wet season, but spending time in the north in the dry season. And it leads us to wonder, why would the wildebeest leave the north when there is more rainfall all year? Is there something beneficial in the south that makes the wildebeest spend more time there? Part 19, truthfully, probably my favorite part of this lesson, because we get that immediate answer to the question. We have a consensus discussion about differences in the regions, and we learn why the wildebeest are spending more time in the south and less time in the north. It introduces the additional limiting factors that wildebeest encounter: nutrition level of grass, predators, fires. And we see here that the south has more nutritious grass, more protection from predators. Because it's an open plain, they're able to see the predators more easily. And the west, again, the wildebeest do not like being there. It's muddy in the wet season, which can cause disease. It's harder to see predators, so there's less protection. And then the north has less nutritious grass, but it has water year round. So that's why they spend time there in the dry season. And we conclude with rain and food drives migration, but it is complicated. Part 20, we're going to update that class consensus model, add in new evidence to the migration map poster. This is a really great time to use those leading questions to help facilitate the discussion. A couple of questions that I really like to use: why do the wildebeest leave the region? What are the positives and negatives of the region? It helps drive the conversation for the students. And again, we see that the migration was more than simply following the rain. So where do we go from here? We figured out that rain is connected to location some of the time, but there are other factors as well. And we wonder how there can be so many wildebeest in the Serengeti. All right, we are almost done with this lesson video. We are on to material management tips and tricks. A couple tips for you here. This lesson has an incredible story, so it's really important to not give that away in the beginning. Having that unexpected find of the wildebeest location really helps the students feel like detectives and investigators and gets them excited about the lesson. My next tip for you is students can get overwhelmed with making a graph. My students always tended to be perfectionists. One way that I would overcome this is I would encourage my students to make a wrong graph. Let's just get it out of our system. Make a graph that you think makes no sense. It just kind of gets their brain starting to go with how to make graphs and that it's okay to not get it right the first time. Next, it's really important that we co-construct that definition, limiting factors. I can be tempted to just give the definition away, but when the students co-construct definitions, they have ownership and they make more meaning with the word. And lastly, positive and negative relationships can be tricky for the students. I have the students generate examples from their life. We usually talk about food or sleep because that's something they're pretty passionate about. Some students think a negative relationship means both variables decreasing, so I usually use the phrase one goes up, the other one goes down. Personal glossary management, we are going to co-construct limiting factors together. And then poster management. We've got that class migration map and the class consensus model that were created in previous lessons that we're going to use in this lesson as well. And with that, we have reached the end of this lesson video. Thank you. So to summarize in this lesson, students are going to look at rain versus location in the Serengeti. Then they're going to look at locations versus the wildebeest and where they're spending their time. And then lastly, we're going to look at regional data cards to determine why are the wildebeest spending more time in the south and less time in the north. This lesson is so fun because the students learn the wildebeest are not where they predicted, and this really sparks their curiosity moving forward into the next lessons. And with that, again, thank you for joining me, and you got this.